Hi, yes, and hello, friends. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for your patience as we get the beginning of the stream underway. This is the very first inaugural, nothing comes before it, everything comes after it, Tabletop Arts Fund Above the Table lecture series. For those of you who have found this by accident or are only here because you saw Rowan's name, the purpose of this series is to provide independent designers with high level advice about the mystifying and generally poorly explained world of independent tabletop role playing game design. So much of the industry is based on networks of personal trust. It's based on like folk wisdom handed down from designer to designer. Not something you can Google, not something you can go to a forum and find. So we here at the TCAF have decided to bring it directly to you in video format and also audio format, a audio visual format. I am being joined tonight by co-founder of Rascal News and prolific TTRPG journalist generally, Rowan Zeoli, who will be talking to us about how to get them to talk about your thing. In a world where the right amount of attention on Reddit or a news website or a TikTok thread can be the difference between your crowdfunder popping off or a niche product seeing its light in the mainstream, it's all very difficult, very confusing, and I am glad she is here to demystify the process with us. Everyone, Rowan Zeoli.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Uh, Aaron did a great introduction. I am Rowan Zeoli, co-founder of Rascal News. I'm also a tabletop writer at Polygon until the end of this week, and a reformed stand-up comedian. I've worked in publishing as a book editor, helping people get their books picked up by agents and publishers. So I have some expertise in both helping people curate pitches to get it picked up and get the attention of a massive slush pile, and also being on the receiving end of said slush pile. So, real excited to talk about this.
Yes. So the format's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to let Rowan pop off until either an hour has passed or she's done. At which point we'll do a moderated Q&A. So if you have questions that pop up either during the conversation, you can throw them in chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Or at the very, very end, we'll run through them and squeeze out a little bit more knowledge from the generously shared nugget we have in front of us. Is there anything else that you need me for, Rowan? Because if not, these people are not here to hear me talk.
No, I think I'm good. It's going to be weird talking at a computer screen, but I do it all day.
Very well. In that case, as I realize that's on the wrong monitor, it's in the correct monitor now. Take it away. It's all yours.
Huge. We love being on the right monitor. Um, so, hey everyone. I'm going to be talking to you today about how to get your shit looked at by journalists, reviewers, content creators, and whoever else you send it out to. Uh, I'm generally going to be giving you information in three formats. Here are three bits of knowledge that I've gained doing this job. One is that the people who you are asking to cover your thing, whether they be journalists or content creators or reviewers or whoever, they are people who are beholden to the systems that we exist under, who are vastly underpaid and overworked. And we all are kind of in this together. Number two is that you have to have a good idea with strong execution. And I'm going to be kind of explaining what a good pitch looks like. And then three, how to make yourself seem as easy to work with as possible. So that way you can kind of get your stuff in front of as many people as possible, in front of as many people's audiences as possible, because streamlining it in that way is really going to be the best way to get it anywhere. I'll dive a bit more into this, but I want to put a disclaimer at the top of this conversation. One, I am not the end all be all of any of this. I'm sure there'll be exceptions to the things that I'm saying, or even things that people think are flat out wrong that I'm saying. I'm also going to be focusing on projects, specifically like games or actual plays, rather than events or charity drives or big like news story tips. Those are all different things that take a different kind of approach. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about those at the end. But this is mainly going to be focused on specifically how to pitch your game and or actual play to a content creator of some kind. As journalists go, there are about a dozen people who cover this industry as a job, and five of them work at Rascal News. There are hundreds of people who do this largely for free or as a passion project or a second or third or fourth job. And it's overwhelming to cover this whole industry and give every project the attention and care that it truly deserves, especially when so much of the marketing budget for these games is hoarded within a few big companies. And also to mention, there are a lot of systemic factors that go into who has the time and resources to make games or actual plays, who has the time to market them well or make something that is quote unquote good, which is a real touchy and weird subject that is so up to taste and bias, and who gets a platform to cover them. There's a lot that goes in there, and I do take it very seriously to make sure that I give everything that is pitched to me a fair shot and that I can cover it with the respect that it deserves, or at least try to respond. But the issue is that while this is a dream job, to be clear, it is still a job and all the bullshit that comes with that. My inbox gets dozens of emails a day from all of the various email lists and newspapers and all that bullshit. And that's why a strong first impression is really imperative. Having a good idea is just as important as presenting it well, giving all of the resources to make it as easy as possible for your game to be covered, and remembering the people working at these outlets or writing these blogs or recording these podcasts or making these videos care so, so deeply about this industry. But we're all just trying to get by. For some transparency, just as an ending note on this, at Polygon, I had to write 10 articles a week in a 19-hour work week. So if that gives you a sense of scale of how difficult it is and what kind of crunch the people covering this industry are under, that's what we're working with here. And that's why now moving into the body of this, it's really, really important to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make it as easy and good as possible. So the people who you are asking to cover your work are also people. Importantly, know who you're pitching. Know who the outlet is, what they normally cover, and who their target audience is. Polygon and Rascal are vastly different entities. Everything about the structure of how our businesses operate is different. Polygon is beholden to a corporation, meaning they need eyes and clicks and affiliate links to keep the lights on. They can go on a stretch and hire an additional person to cover it every once in a while. But once I'm gone at the end of this week, it's back down to just one person covering tabletop full time there. That's the same at the tabletop beat over at Forbes, what Rob Weiland covers. Because now Dicebreaker is gone, IO9 is gone. It's a rough situation out there for tabletop journalism. People at these large legacy outlets have to justify to their editors, their executives, why this thing, your thing, is worth covering and will garner readership for the site. A good pitch that you're going to be sending in has to be tailored to the outlet, to the writer you're pitching, and the audience that they're writing to. And making sure that it is tailored to all of those three things will make it easier for the writer to justify the coverage and get the person making the stuff excited about your work specifically. At other sites like Rascal, going into knowing your audience, we have more freedom in what we cover, mainly what we're excited about, what we see other people excited about, or what we think is compelling or interesting in the industry. For Rascal specifically, we have our community announcement section, which we provide as a free place for tabletop professionals to promote their work. And if you want to get set up with that at all, you can email me after at press@rascal.news, and we'll set you up with a contributor account, and you can, for free, market your stuff out to the world. That is something, because we are 5 people who don't have the time to cover everything. That was our substitute to try and be like, hey, we know that we are limited in our time and energy and resources, but we want to provide you with a space where you can talk about your thing. And who better to talk about your thing but you? There are other independent sites like Fundamentals or Bell of Lost Souls or Wargamer or EN World. They also have more freedom to cover things than the large polygons of the world, but many are still beholden to things like ad revenue or affiliate links to keep the site running, and are still beholden then to the click rate. Content creators and reviewers, on the other hand, might be completely independent or entirely beholden to sponsors and paid promotion. So that gets a little bit tricky. And when doing that, really know, like I said, know who you're pitching to know whether the stuff that you're pitching is going to be good for the kind of content that they normally cover or what they are expecting from you as someone pitching them their work. When you're looking at these writers, when you're looking at specific content creators, specific journalists, know their past work, know their general interests, know their typical coverage angle. Knowing this makes it easier for you and for them. Someone is way more likely to cover something that you made if it falls in the pattern of the type of stuff that they cover, also known as a journalistic beat. Find different angles to pitch people based on the beats that they have. Reaching out to me, Rowan, a trans tabletop writer and vocal political leftist, is gonna have a bit of a different spin than reaching out to like a YouTube channel or a TikToker that talks specifically about D&D supplements. Making sure that you're saving your time and energy by pitching people who are already going to be predisposed to like your thing feels a lot better because you're going to get less rejections. Getting rejections in general is just kind of a part of pitching out your work, and it's hard and it sucks. And it doesn't mean it is a value of how good your work is. It is just a reflection of what they have the time and capacity and interest to cover. You need to think creatively about how to reach new people. Like maybe you have a romance game, and you might actually be able to get some traction reaching out to less saturated areas. Like if you find a romance blog or a TikToker who does advice, like you can think really out of the box to try and find people who aren't already drowned in this industry. And that might then feel interesting and novel and new to them. For example, like again, say you have a zombie game and there's this one reporter at some outlet or a blog that loves writing about The Last of Us or other kinds of zombie content. If you can find that angle in and it is new to them, they're more likely to go, oh, this is cool and interesting and different. Yeah, let me cover it. Because it still falls within the realm of the stuff that their audience is expecting from them and what their interests are. These are just examples, but finding ways to breach outside of the tabletop sphere is also going to be a great way to reach audiences who are interested in what you're doing and have no idea what TTRPGs are and might have some more money to spend on your thing or more attention to spend on your show. The third point about knowing that the people who you're asking to cover are people is knowing how to contact them. Every person has a different way that they solicit pitches and ask for things to be covered. I always recommend going with email addresses. Email addresses are way better than like a cold DM on Blue Sky or Instagram or something. And getting added in a public post on social media is a nightmare. Unless, like I've done this in the past, I have asked for solicitations of a certain kind of game or certain kinds of shows, and I do that relatively frequently. If I'm not doing that and you at me and go, hey, I think you would like this, it's going to have to be really good for me to actually go, I'm going to follow this. Or if I'm just not looking on Blue Sky, there's a high chance because I just deleted Blue Sky from my phone, everyone. I think that's maybe a good idea for everyone to do, get social media off your phone. But I'm not going to get on that soapbox. But make sure that you are finding avenues that are reliable and lasting. Tipping journalists off to stories in this way of adding people on social media is usually fine. But self promotion of, hey, I just made this thing, you should check it out, is usually a bit of a faux pas. It's not really anything that's going to make you look too bad. It's just not going to be the best way for you to get in. So we're on to the second point now, which is how to have a good idea with strong execution. Because ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. Everyone has a bunch of ideas floating around. It is how you execute on that idea that makes your idea unique and interesting and your project something worth talking about. When pitching your project, you need to do more than just like, I've made a thing, you should look at it. You have the right to make art. You have the right to share that art with the world. But something that's really hard for everyone, and including myself as a journalist, is none of us are entitled to an audience. We have to be providing something of value in terms of art, in terms of the writing that we're doing, in terms of our performance, that make it worthwhile because people have so little time, so little money, and you need to prove to them that your thing is something that they need. As I said before, I'm a reformed stand-up comedian, and there was a comedian that I knew who was a show who said that marketing is evil storytelling, and that really landed for me because it is. It's the same skills as what you're using to make your products, but it's just inverted for the point of capitalism as opposed to just for the sake of making art. It's the worst thing in the world, and everyone hates doing it, but we're all here because that's the systems we're stuck under. That's why if you have made something good, it'll be easier to sell because the foundations of your evil storytelling will just be good storytelling. This advice transfers over from pitching to journalists and content creators to actual marketing and the sale of your game at conventions, retail stores, online stores, your own content that you make. It is a transferable skill that people really need to work on to make sure that they have a polished elevator pitch. There are a lot of kinds of pitches, but elevator pitches and summary pitches, that's not really a great term for them, but what I'm going to call them, those are the two that we're really going to be talking about right now. An elevator pitch is a couple sentences long, like literally 2 or 3 sentences. One, if you can get that short, is even better. It's literally called an elevator pitch because if you were to walk into an elevator and go, hey, here's my idea, let me tell you about it, by the time someone got off on the floor above them, they would have an understanding of what you have made and go, oh, I want to hear more actually. This is your hook to bring them into a longer summary pitch or your press kit. These like elevator pitches are great for social media, the body of an email, DMs, or literally convention sales if you're boothing and trying to get people passing by to go, hey, here's the game that I bought or the game that I made, you should buy it. A summary pitch is a little bit longer. It's a more in-depth description of your project after you've gotten those initial hooks in. Here's what it consists of. It consists of what is it, who made it, and why should I care? What is it is the title of the project. It's a basic description. This is a little bit different for games than actual play, and I'll go into that a bit more in depth in a little bit. Who made it is obvious. It's authors, artists, actors, producers, sound editors, layout designers, emotional support animals, your deli guy's mom, literally whoever is involved in the making of this project. That is what goes into the longer pitch because you want to make sure that the people who are involved in this project are getting the credit that they deserve. And also, you never know what the connections in the world are. I have gotten pitches before where someone was like, hey, I made this thing. And I saw in the larger body email that someone whose work I really respected happened to be involved in this game. They'd done some writing for it or they'd been performing on the show. And knowing that one person made me go, oh, I trust their work outside of this. Let me then see if this project is something worthwhile for me. It's just another step to be like, okay, how many ways can I grab the person reading this? Now, the last bit, why should I care? Sounds a little bit crude, but it's really pragmatic. This is not about like a gatekeeper going, why should I give a fuck about your measly little project? It's more about, say, a strung out writer doing her best and drowning in pitches and books and potential articles and working in progress and a personal life and medical issues and climate catastrophes and a bird flu and fascism. And she has roughly 30 seconds of brain power before her brain remembers that she forgot to eat, which I did forget to eat today, unless, of course, her largely unmedicated ADHD can hyperfixate on whatever thing you have sent me in the email. The way you do that is by having a good pitch. You can also have it by finding big news pegs to hang it on, something that makes this relevant right now, like the Last of Us example before. When the season went, oh, even better, Squid Game just came out. Squid Game was a great excuse for me to be able to write about Deathmatch Island because I got to have a news peg of something really popular in the zeitgeist and go, hey, here's a game that is going to fill scratch that itch of Squid Game, and giving that gift to a journalist or a content creator helps with the algorithmic hell that we're in. So that way people's attention can be moved from this big thing over to your smaller project. These are called comps or touchstones also. They come in the form of systems like Forged in the Dark or Powered by the Apocalypse, but also come in the form of other media. Uh, so that helps you go, oh, this is the vibe that I am going to get from this game or actual play. If you don't include those touchstones, it makes it a lot harder for you to explain what your thing is, because you're going to be starting from scratch as opposed to going, it's like this meets this. Like it's like Squid Game meets Survivor, and that's Deathmatch Island. A great pitch, an easy thing to explain to someone else. For games, the specific stuff about how to pitch a game is that you need to tell me what your game is about, how it achieves that, and what makes it unique. When you're writing a pitch, you want to front load the player experience before you mention mechanics. The elevator pitch, the short pitch, the 1 to 2 sentences, should focus on the story the game wants players to be telling. And then your larger press kit should then go deeper into the mechanics and the specifics. I'm going to use an example from a friend of mine, Elliot Davis, who made a game called The Time We Have recently. And I think this is a great example of how to pitch your game in general. Hold on one second. The Time We Have is a game about what it means to be a brother, about all the complexity, vulnerability, and joy that comes with it. This is a storytelling card game played on opposite sides of a closed door and a conversation about saying goodbye. That's a strong hook. That is what was sent in the body of the email and goes, okay, here's the emotional experience you're going to have. Here's what it is. We get the emotional experience in that first sentence. The second sentence then says what kind of game it is, a storytelling card game. And then it brings in something unique on opposite sides of a closed door. And then it closes out with a really strong emotional impact and a conversation about saying goodbye. That emotional resonance is what is most important to convey. And then when you get into the larger press kit, it goes on to say this. It goes into more specifics about what the game is. This 2-player TTRPG will guide you through the tragic and intimate story of 2 brothers in the final days before one of you turns. You will take turns drawing cards, asking questions, and processing this change together. Once the door is closed, your story begins. In the end, it is up to the surviving brother. Do you open the door? So you get a bit more of that drive, of that narrative question of like, ooh, this is really interesting. There's so many ways that this could go, and it's going to leave me feeling a specific kind of emotion. So taking that structure of big overarching idea of what this game's player experience is, diving a little bit more into specifics about the mechanics, diving even more into specifics about the mechanics and what makes the game unique, and then landing again on that emotional resonance really gives you a full circle that is a very tight pitch. And that took, I don't know, maybe 45 seconds, 60 seconds to say all of it. Really sitting with and taking time to get a good pitch takes a long time and a lot of editing. And you're going to go through a lot of different ways, and figuring out how to specifically tailor it to different kinds of people also then requires writing a lot of different pitches. Like this pitch is great for me, but say you're talking to someone who has a Walking Dead blog. That's not gonna, it's not gonna hit them maybe in the same way. And you need to then shift it to go, okay, what are their interests going to be in this game? How can you evoke the kind of emotional beats that happened in that show? This is just an example, but just kind of priming you to think about how are you going to approach different angles of pitches to different writers, content creators, etc. Now, pivoting to actual play, how you make a pitch for that is you have to ask yourself, what makes your show different? Is it the production quality? Is it innovative technical approaches? Is it a compelling narrative with an interested target audience? All of these things also apply for games, but when you're making an actual play that you're trying to market, you need to think about it in the same way you would think about any other kind of story, whether it's like a book, a movie, a TV show. You then need to have specific metadata, which is formatting, audio, like format, which is audio, video, pre recorded, live stream, ongoing show, limited series, to know just a basic overview of what the person is going to be getting into. You also need to list out what the game system is, how many episodes are in the show, what a release date is, what the main story pitch is. Like I said, you're pitching a story. The medium you're making the story in is unique in that it uses a game to tell it and it's improvised, but you can't really hinge on that unless you're reaching out to people who don't already know what actual play is. And then you have to do the work of explaining that this is an improvised narrative. Meeting people where they're at is a big thing that I hope you all take away from this, and understanding how to tailor meeting people where they're at. Don't hinge the pitch of your actual play show on the personalities in the show. Hinge the pitch on what is actually on screen. Now, there are obviously a couple of exceptions to not hinging on the personalities. If you have the big names, and we all know who they are because we're all thinking them as I'm not saying them. If you have any of those people in your show, then use that because that's how a lot of big outlets are going to get their coverage because so few people cover actual play. And the things that get the attention are the big names like Critical Role and Dimension 20. Here's how you construct a story pitch. There's a lot of advice on the internet of how to construct a story pitch. I really would advise you to go look at book pitches for this. There's a wealth of information because people pitching books are just as many people making actual play, if not a lot more. So story pitch goes in this sort of breakdown. You establish the status quo of the world. You say what happens to interrupt the status quo of that world. You state how that interruption impacts the main characters, what choice that impact forces them to then make, and what the stakes of that choice are. I wish I had a great example for this, but I do not. I can answer some questions if anyone has some questions in the chat and wants to include like pitching their own thing, and then I'll give you some on the fly notes about it. I'm happy to do that during our Q&A session. Some other important notes about pitching actual play coverage is if your actual play is a limited run, it's best if your show is already finished, because it is hard to do a review of a show if it's not complete. If you're just asking for, hey, here, this thing is happening, I deeply apologize, but there is not really a place in the ecosystem right now where people are going to get that kind of like first or second episode coverage like they would for a TV show. You can make that yourself. You can become a content creator and do those kinds of reviews. I would love for other people to join me in doing this work because actual play and TTRPGs deserve that kind of coverage. Either way, if it's a long form series, find a part of the series that highlights its best elements. You're going to need that for like festival clips anyway. If you have like a half-hour clip that's like, here's some of the best performances in the show. Again, doubling up on your work, making it so that way you're making one thing, making the journalists or content creators' life easier, but then also benefiting yourself so you can submit to WebFest to try and get that different kind of exposure. But either way, make sure that you have a clip ready. It's a lot easier to watch something condensed than to watch all of it because as someone who tries to cover actual play as much as I can, even covering a single actual play is 20 hours worth of work compared to covering a tabletop game, which is 4 to 5 hours worth of work if it's like a full big book. And now the final point in my little triad is make yourself as easy to work with as possible. Send good emails. Like I said, find people's emails, but make sure that you're sending good ones. Again, my friend Elliot Davis, who made the time we have, he has a quote that I now live by, which is, "You sends out emails, you gets back emails." And that's just true. The higher frequency you just try to make contact with people, the wider you spread your net, the more likely you're going to get any kind of response. And in those emails, be friendly, compliment their work, reference something that they've done so they know that you know their work and aren't just sending this out randomly to everyone that you can think of. It's a nice thing to do because it feels really good. And we are generally an underthanked group of people who are doing this work. But psychologically, if we're going to get into like the darker side of it, it's a good way to like manipulate someone a little bit to get them to hear you out more. If you say something nice, they're going to be like, "Oh, that's a nice person. Let's see what their project is." Kindness goes a really, really long way. Uh, in your email, be sure to be short and direct. This requires having a good elevator pitch, having those 2 to 3 sentences to just be like, "Hello, I like the work that you do. Here's my thing. Here's exactly what it is. Are you interested or not? At the bottom of this, I have attached a press kit with all of the information I need. Let me know if you want a response." And with that, having a good press kit is so important. Include all of the relevant information, like I listed before, but also art assets really, really help. Good art goes a long way, and I know that it's not affordable for a lot of people to get art. But if you can invest in it, or if you can collaborate with an artist, do like a profit share or just anything, it will really elevate the perception of your game, both to the people you're pitching it to, but also in the final product. Use images from the inside of the book in the art assets. Also, I get so many emails of people who are like, "Please talk about my game." And there's no art, so I can't use a cover image for the articles because every single article has that big feature image at the top. And if we don't have art for the game, it makes it a little bit harder to, it just makes it frustrating on the back end, honestly. Um, Plus One EXP is a great publisher that has a press kit workshop. They did it for their Zine Month 2022. You can go find that on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It has a lot of really great advice in there. If you can afford this, offer to send a physical copy of the game. But if that's out of your budget, that's like totally okay. And I would say the norm, honestly. But if you're writing a game, include a PDF in the original email. It saves time from someone having to look at it, go, "Oh, this seems really cool. Let me email them back." They forget for 2 weeks. They go, "Oh, right, this thing was cool. Can you send me a PDF of it?" Another month passes before they're actually able to even write about it. It just saves some time. And if someone is interested in your game, it really streamlines that barrier to entry. If you're sending this email to someone asking them to cover your game, you are entrusting them to represent and speak about your project. If you don't trust them not to steal or redistribute your PDF, you shouldn't be asking them for a review. Just point blank. This is now a little bit of a journalistic area. It is largely considered unethical to send a product in exchange for coverage. There's a gray line that kind of arises when you get to content creators, which is a whole other conversation. But the hard line is that you cannot send anyone material in exchange for a positive review, nor can you pay them to review your work. That is a paid advertisement. That is a compensated advertisement, which is in fact a crime if it is not disclosed. So make sure that when you're offering to send things to someone, that you are doing it just in the hopes of coverage. And if you cannot afford to send that out, you can be honest about that. Be like, "Hey, I'm a single designer. I have like 3 copies I can send out to people. If you don't think you're going to be able to cover this, I'll send you a PDF so you can read it. But I can't afford to mail all these out for no coverage. That's totally reasonable and understandable. Just something that you need to know going in. If you're crowdfunding a game, send an ash can and a quick start a month in advance minimum. Because at Rascal, typically it takes me a month and a half to 2 months to really get to something, especially if you're crowdfunding and you want that notoriety, if you want that publicity while the crowdfunding is still going on. Make sure you give ample time to the person covering it to be able to write the art, read it, write the article, edit the video, whatever they need to do. So that way it lines up with when you're trying to make money. Uh, for actual plays, this is a lot harder. Like I said, include a highlight reel or specific episodes or timestamps, but just highlight the best that your show has to offer. So, kind of just going over it all, remember that the people you're asking to cover you're asking to cover your stuff are also people who are dealing with their own shit. They're trying their best, and a little grace both ways really makes this whole ecosystem a little bit healthier. Have a good idea with strong execution that is unique, compelling, has cultural touchstones, maybe has art assets and a free copy, and make yourself as easy to work with as possible. Send emails, send follow ups, do whatever you can to just get yourself out there because it's hard out here. It's really difficult. I'm doing my best to make sure that I can do right by the people who send me and entrust me with their projects for coverage. I try to give everything a real thorough shake, but there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much energy in the world. And if you really put in the work, it will reflect in your pitch. And if your pitch is good, it makes it so that way I'm going to believe and trust that the thing that I'm going to spend more time and energy looking at, the final product, will be worth it because you've spent so much energy just in presenting how you're going to put it in front of me that I'm sure you've put equally as much energy into the project that you're sharing with me. That's kind of everything I have in terms of all of my thoughts. It was a little jumbly in there because I thought I was going to have a presentation and I realized I didn't, which was great for me because it wasn't much work. But if you have any questions, I am going to be here for however long you want to have me. Aaron is a black screen right now. There he is.
I did the specific effort of covering up my webcam because we have a Zoom meeting running. I didn't want Rowan to have to see me in the corner and me make a thing, but that was a delightful time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope any of it was useful.
Well, it puts me in an awkward position because I did collect questions via email ahead of time, and just to give you a sense of how well your talk has gone, the questions include: do you prefer early access to a project, or is it better to wait until I have a full release? From an actual play creator. What kind of assets should I send along in my press kit? From a TTRPG creator. And how much information is too much information in my initial email? I am worried about over-explaining. So the three questions that we got the most in advance of this, I think you've covered incredibly well. There is one that I think puts a slightly different swing on the question you've asked, and that is, are there red flags that you see in pitches that I should avoid? For example, if I'm saying my thing is like D&D, but does that automatically turn off some part of your journalist brain?
That's really gonna go into knowing who you're pitching, because if I saw that at Rascal, yes. If I saw that at Polygon, I go, oh, the SEO is gonna love D&D but blank. So really, again, it is doing the work to tailor your pitch. Because I just wrote a piece about Exalted Funerals Land of Eam, which they pitched as D&D, but the Muppets meets the Lord of the Rings. An incredible pitch, an amazing pitch that entirely consists of other properties that makes me go, okay, I know what this vibe is immediately. And then importantly, also delivered on that vibe.
I couldn't be me. I sorry. You know the kind of stuff I make. And I'm like, that's a question from somebody else. Happy to if you are in chat. Oh, hey, no man's here. No man's good. Good people. If you have any questions in chat, feel free to throw them out. Rowan is not looking, but I am, so I will be happy to forward them to her on your behalf. Second one, how many times am I allowed to send another email? If someone has missed it the first time, I understand. We are all busy. But at what point should. Sorry, I didn't read the entire email before, but it ends with, at what point should a girl just take a hint?
So true, so fair. I would say 3 emails. First email, you send it out, maybe you don't get a response. Second email, replying to that first email, going, hey, don't know if you saw this, just wanted to bring this back to your inbox. Third email, trying a completely different angle of pitch. Because if you pitch it differently enough, maybe I won't even remember that that was the initial thing that you pitched me. So that I say, really, that is the three, but that's again, 2 is the lowest, 3 is the highest, I would say.
I hope the person will actually. I have their email address. I'll just send them and tell them that it's at 44 minutes and seconds in the thing. And then the last one here, I think you've actually already touched on it as well, which is outstanding. I hope they all go this well. This makes my job incredibly easy.
I'm so glad. Yeah. Talking at a blank screen and looking at my notes is a crazy experience, but God, I hope you all enjoyed it.
It's been a number of people who we've talked to who are like, but it's not a panel. And I'm like, no, I just want your brain. Like, my brain alone? I'm like, yeah. Because it's been a lot of fun. And I think the experience that you have brought that I've enjoyed is it gives you a chance to go deeper into individual pieces than you can get in a panel. In a panel, we have 5 people say, how many emails should you send? And everyone gets a turn. And then we've spent 15 minutes on a question that takes 30 seconds to answer.
Precisely. Yeah.
I don't see anything coming through in chat, so I assume they are all likewise awestruck by the fact that you've covered everything. Is there something that didn't make it into the chat, or something that you had a thought and might want to expound more upon?
The biggest thing just being that the traditional modes of marketing that we all have are kind of collapsing. Social media is kind of collapsing, journalism is collapsing. And that makes everyone's lives really difficult. No one wants to be a creator and a marketer, but unfortunately, this is the position that we are all put in. Like I said with the announcement section, that is my and Rascal's way of trying to contribute to that ability to have a centralized space where everyone can look at things. But something that's really, really important is you cannot be doing this for media recognition. You cannot be doing this to become the next big game. Unfortunately, you can't even be doing this because you want to make money off of it. You have to just be doing it because you love it and because you want to keep doing it and you want to share it with the 30 sickos that you know on Blue Sky. And that has to be enough, and everything else above it makes it amazing. And it sucks that that's just the way it is.
Yeah, we got to make the game that you want to make, because that's the only motivation that's going to exist unless you get real lucky.
Yeah.
This question did come in through the email, and I think it segues off the back of yours. This seems like someone who was watching it live and also sent me an email, which is strange. How important is it to have a developed web presence? Is there an amount of effort I need to put into those things for you to take me seriously when you get my email? So I think what they mean is, do I need like a website for my game, or do I need 1,000 Twitter followers? No, definitely not Twitter followers. 1,000 Blue Sky followers, etc.
Not Twitter. No, you don't need to have a web presence. I think there are some industries in which, like traditional publishing, for example, if they're not going to publish your book unless you are an expert or have 20,000 followers or whatever. In this industry, with the way this is covering, having a good pitch and having a good press kit is enough. Because I don't give a fuck if I can go on Blue Sky and find your at. As long as I have a way to contact you from the email you sent me going, here is my game. Do you like my game? And if I really like your game, I'm going to write about it anyway. Don't put your energy into becoming a social media personality. Put your energy into becoming an artist.
Excellent advice, and also validating because I don't put any energy into my online presence. So I'm like, yeah, this talk's amazing. Well, that's fantastic. I don't have anything coming through from the chat, and like I said, you annihilated the email queue just by existing. So thank you for that. Which means it's almost time for us to go. Would you like to know who's going to be here next month?
I would love to know.
Yeah, we are delighted to have with us Brooke Whitney and Carrie Jo Cage Freudigman from Roll20, and they'll be presenting How to Find Success on Drive-Thru RPG.
Oh, hell yeah.
The R20 DTRPG teams being together. They're going to talk about both sides of it. Like, you want to get that medallion? Here's what successful pages do. And if you would like to how to coordinate, so like, you know, R20 module, well, how does that kind of stuff happen for people who do not have money to just throw at a person to do it for them? So they will be here next month. In a better world, I would have remembered which day that is, but it's always the third Tuesday. It'll be at the same time.
We're not in a better world right now. We can try our best to make it a better one.
And I have failed in my one small job to give you that. But it'll be on Blue Sky where you can find us. We'll also put it on our website, which is tabletop.artsfund.org. If you're catching up late now, this will be on YouTube tomorrow. It's youtube.com/_ or tabletop_AF because I thought it was funny.
And it is.
And you'll be able to find it there. If there is interest, please let us know. We might put a podcast version up if you're the kind of person who prefers to consume on the go or in your car. Otherwise, yes, thanks coming in from chat from the man from Jelly PB. Thank you so much for joining us, Rowan. If you do not know Rowan, she is amazing, and you should get to know her as a person. But if you all do, because I think our audience overlaps exactly with the Rascal audience. So on the off chance that if you are that person, send me an email. I would love to know. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here, and hopefully we'll see you back around when the next pearls of wisdom are ready to harvest, eh?
Absolutely. Doing great work.
All right. And thank you so much to the audience. If you are an independent designer and missed the memo, we are postponing our TTRPG production grants until February. We have a lot of judges and a lot of potential submitters who were affected by the LA wildfires. But on the 15th of February, we are opening up our grants to help you get a project across the finish line. So if you've got a banger of a manuscript, but you don't have enough money for cover art, or you've done the developmental editing and the manuscript's ready, but you need an editor, we have a wonderful group of volunteers from all skill levels in the industry who are willing to help you get your work accomplished at a lower price point than they might normally charge. And we will give you the cash to help square that circle. It's not a life-changing amount of money, but between $350 and $500 for a grant to get you some cover art, to get you some internal art, to get you some editing, to get you a sensitivity consultant or anything like that, to take your project from very nearly finished to sending an incredible elevator pitch and press kit to Rowan Zeoli at rascal.com. Again, Blue Sky, tabletop_AF, tabletop.artsfund.org. Those are the places to find us. We're happy to see you there. In the meantime and between time, though, bye for now. Thanks for coming.